happy summer. It's already June 2023. I cannot believe it. And I have a little treat for you this summer. We're going to be doing some little mini podcasts this summer, a little bit shorter than usual, because we know that hopefully you're relaxing, taking some time to reflect, and then prepare for the next school year. But if you didn't know, I released a book in April of this year called Social Media for Schools: Proven Storytelling Strategies and Ideas to Celebrate Your Students and Staff while Keeping Your Sanity. And I thought this summer it would be fun to meet some of the storytellers that are coming at you in this book. We have stories from over 50 different schools and school districts, variety of different roles that really share how they've put into practice the things that I am teaching throughout the 20 chapters of this book. I'm not going to share 20 different short podcasts, but I'm going to share quite a few. And today we're going to start right at chapter 1. The whole first section of the book is on systems. And chapter 1 is entitled It Starts at the Top. And today you are going to meet Jerry Almendarez. He is the superintendent at Santa Ana Unified School District in California. I've had the pleasure of working with him and his team and his brand ambassador program. But he's really going to talk about the challenge he faced when he came into Santa Ana and how he's really elevated the storytelling that's happening throughout their district with over 41,000 students. There's some big takeaways in this book. If you haven't grabbed your copy, I sure hope you will. We're actually doing a book study as part of our membership group this summer. And if you want to do a book study on this book in your school district, in an organization that you're part of, please reach out to me. If you can grab 6 or more, I will consider doing a free little session with you so that we can talk through the book. Not an entire book study, but I can do a 45-minute free webinar for you in a small group to talk through this book. So again, today you are going to meet Jerry and hear a little bit more about, starting social media at the top. But before we get started, let's have our K-12 PR tip. All right, today's K-12 PR tip comes from chapter 1 of the book. Every chapter ends with you've got this, and it's got some key takeaways. And one of the things that chapter 1 teaches us is embracing the social ROI, return on investment, that comes from 3 things: from celebrating students, from showing the community why your work is valuable and why the school's work is valuable, and recruiting superstar teachers to your team. Let's really think about your social media strategy, the stories you're sharing over the summer months, and then into the new school year, of really how much are we truly celebrating students? How much are we showing the community the work we're doing? And are we showcasing things that are going to help us recruit superstar teachers and superstar staff? Which, shortages of staff members are everywhere. Social media can really be leveraged for that. So think about those 3 things and then lean into this short episode with Jerry Almendarez. Welcome to the podcast, Jerry Almendarez. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yes, and you're joining me from sunny California.
Yeah.
So happy to have you here. So I'd love, I've known you for a little while, but I'd love you to introduce yourself, kind of your role there as superintendent for Santa Ana Unified School District, and some of your background.
Sure. Jerry Almendarez, Superintendent, Santa Ana Unified School District. I've been here for about 3 years. I began the district in December of 2023, months before COVID hit. And prior to that, I was in the Inland Empire at a district there for over 25 years, the last 10 of those being the superintendent.
Okay. And what did you do before you were in your role as superintendent?
I was in human resources, classroom teacher, high school principal,
Okay.
assistant principal, kind of just doing the normal thing. But education is actually my second profession. I was a an accountant prior to becoming an educator.
Oh my gosh. That's a unique little story there. And then what your first role in teaching, what did you teach?
A math, seventh
Okay.
grade math class, and never subbed because math was in demand back in those days. And I had accepted a position, not knowing that the teacher had left at after a few weeks after the beginning of the school year. The class was pretty challenging, but me not knowing that, I just knew that I got a job offer and was like, "Yeah, I'll take it." And came in, and a few weeks later, after working with the kids, it just really felt like it was the right place to be, and connected with the kids, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, really moved into a lot of leadership roles. So how many years have you been in education in total?
28 years,
What
28 years total.
okay.
And a lot of those years in a leadership position, assistant principal, principal, director of human resources, assistant soup, and then superintendent.
And tell me a little bit about Santa Ana Unified School District there.
Well, Santa Ana is the 11th largest in the state of California. We're about 41,000 students, about 83% Hispanic, and we are a high socioeconomically disadvantaged community. And so we're fully 100% free and reduced lunch, blue collar community, families centered in the smack dab in the center of Orange County, and surrounded by these high income areas like Costa Mesa, Newport, Irvine, Westminster, Garden Grove. And so our challenges are pretty unique to the county in the sense that we were one of the hardest hit districts during COVID. We were one of two districts in the county that were shut down for pretty much 2 years, where other districts were able to open up and offer their students in-person instruction.
Wow. Yeah, and you've just been there 3 years, so
three
almost
years.
all of that has been in COVID. So, I wanted to invite you on today, Jerry, because you have just really jumped into social media and the power of it. And, when you describe your school and some of the challenges, some leaders like you might be like, oh my gosh, we can't put anything out on social media. So, why is the use of social media? Why do you think it's important? For your school, why as a leader do you believe in it?
Well, I believed in it prior to coming to Santa Ana, but I think it elevated its value during COVID, especially being a new superintendent to a new area, new district, new community. Um, when I got here in December, I was able to get out to a few school sites and meet and interact with some of our community members in school. But when COVID hit, all of that was taken away. And so being a new person to a district and a community, I was struggling with how am I going to get out there and interact and let people know who I am, what we're trying to do, but also hear what their issues and their concerns are. And that's when I really gravitated towards heavily using social media as leverage to share with the community and communicate with the community what was happening from the health department perspective, what we were doing to keep our schools safe, interacting, taking pictures and snapshots of screen shots of me meeting with our leadership team, principals, directors, coordinators, classified maintenance teams, really having conversations about what we're doing to make sure our schools are safe when students return, so we could reduce the anxiety of our parents and our community and let them worry about just staying healthy and safe. And so my team here in Santa Ana was really good in embracing the value of social media. And so some things that really jumped out and surfaced at the very beginning were our maintenance crews were taking video and pictures of them cleaning the classrooms, sanitizing the desks and all the touch points, taking pictures of the ventilation devices that were coming into the school, taking pictures of them putting up the plexiglass, really just letting our community know that through video and through audio and through still pictures that, hey, we're doing everything we can do to ensure safety of your families and students. And then because we're such a large district, our community health partners reached out to us and asked us if we would host some of the vaccination centers when the vaccine became available. And so social media was a very powerful tool in getting the message out to our elderly. There was a series of steps that we had to go through, and it enabled us to use the power of social media to really crowdsource the information, the vaccination centers, and all of that stuff to really help our community get through this. And so,
Yeah. Awesome. And now you've been able to continue to use those social media platforms. Jerry, you really lead by example. We'll make sure that we have your social platforms, linked in the show notes. So you personally, as the superintendent, use Twitter and you use LinkedIn. And so, can you just kind of explain how you go about using social media in your role to tell some of the stories that you see?
sure. And, I've evolved, and think I'm in a different place in the use of social media. But when I first started out, for the first probably 6 or 7 years, it was to tell our story. It was really just to enhance and to show off the work, the incredible work that our teachers were doing, our classified employees were doing, to show off the excitement of our community members and our parents when they were engaging in student activities, to highlight students and really just showcase their talents in a variety of different ways, whether it was athletic, academic, or performing arts. And we still do that because those that intentional posting and that intentional reflection of the posts that our school sites do are really aligned with our board priorities, our board policies, and more recently our graduate profile. And so I bring that up because I've transitioned from using social media to tell our story to using social media to lead with social influence. And I think that's the transition that I've made as a superintendent in the past 3 years, really when COVID hit, is how do I embrace these platforms and use it to lead a community through a crisis or lead a district to accomplish their goals and objectives based on what their priorities are as a district and as a community. And so that's kind of where we're at right now.
Sure. So how does that show itself in the stories that you're trying to tell? Do you have an
Yeah.
example?
So we a few probably the year and a half into, well, about a year into COVID, we pulled our about 80 community leaders together and took them through a series of workshops to develop a graduate profile. And that's a very common instrument in a lot of public schools. But what we wanted to do, because everybody worked so hard and dedicated a lot of time to that, we wanted to reinsure our community that this wasn't just a characteristics that were on a poster up on a wall, that we wanted to take it from poster to practice. And the way that I was going to ensure our community leaders that was going to happen was to use social media to share with our community members that when we talk about a student being the architect of their learning, which is one of the characteristics of graduate profile, we wanted our sites and our teachers to capture what that looks like in the classroom or on their campuses, and then hashtag SAUSD graduate profile and tag our community partners so they can see in their feeds, oh, yes, we worked on that. Oh my God, that's great. And so that's kind of the leverage that we're using to lead with social influence. So now we have our community partners that invested 7 months of their time working on this document, actually seeing it come to fruition by the activities that are taking place at our school sites, and in the classrooms and in the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that graduate profile that you really involve your partners, those people that are going to be employing your students, and really deciding, hey, what do we want our graduates to have accomplished? So I know you put a lot of work into that. Um, I was recently in California with your brand ambassador program. I'm very excited for that. So not only are you leading by example, and you've got a social communications department, but you've got a lot of schools out there that are also telling their story, and you're really working on empowering that district to tell more stories on social media. So can you kind of explain the thought process behind your brand ambassador program and what you hope it helps do for your school district?
Yeah. And so originally the challenge that we had as a district was, and being new to a district is coming here and embracing the social media platforms and then trying to tell the story, but in isolation. So it was the superintendent's office. I had an executive assistant that really was the brainchild of the brand ambassador process. And she came to me and said, "Hey, I got an idea. What do you think of this?" And I thought, perfect. That would be absolutely a good thing to do. So we gave her the green light to move forward, and that is to seek out at the school sites any individual that is interested in participating in using these social media platforms to tell their stories, their school stories. And so we pulled together the first year about 80 volunteers district wide and had a conversation. We actually tapped into you and your services because you are the expert in this area, and really gave them a social media class 101 type of conversation to get them started. And over the year, really picked up some momentum and really sparked enthusiasm among our community and among our school sites, because now it wasn't just the superintendent pushing out the content that the superintendent thought was good, but it was our classroom instructional assistants, it was our vice principals, our principals, some cases our instructional assistants at the school sites, anybody who was interested in participating in this. And we got to see the amazing talent and the amazing things that are happening in the school site through their lens. And so it was no longer just a superintendent telling the story, it was everybody reflecting the district and the community, sharing those stories, and they were tagging their networks. So just imagine that ripple effect. My network is limited to my followers, but every single brand ambassador has a following, and it could be different than mine. So what better way to really, in a unilateral way, get the message out to the entire community? And I'm so proud of the work that they have done. And I often get complimented when I go out to our county meetings and other places across the state, is like people compliment me on the work that is happening here in Santa Ana. And I'm almost embarrassed because, I'm not the one doing the work. The people in the schools are doing the work, but they're pushing it out via social media so people are seeing it. And that puts a big smile on my face and just warms my heart.
Yeah, so many positive stories that are happening that you can't possibly cover, that your communications department can't possibly cover. You have a really nice setup on your website. I just want to give you a shout out for that because you've got a really great social media directory. So we've got all of your schools listed out there. And then if they've got a Facebook page, it's directly linked. If they've got an Instagram or a Twitter account or LinkedIn, those are right there. And obviously the hope is that all of those schools are actively telling their stories. Now, right now, some are a little more active than others, right?
Yeah,
But we're trying to give them the tools so that they feel empowered and knowledgeable enough to be able to spread all that good news.
correct. I think the biggest challenge is people really understanding the value of the social media presence. And I remember when I first started to think about participating in this, I was a little concerned and a little worried too, because there were so many unknowns to me about, and that at that time I think it was just Instagram and Twitter. Now there's a whole bunch of other platforms. But what I did is I created an account, and I got my communications department nervous in my previous district because they were not in the same mindset as I was at some point, and cautious, overly cautious and protective, I think. Well, I created the account, and I just started to follow people that I thought, who I want to know what you're doing. And I started to see their post, and then I started to feel over time like I got I get there's a better I got something like that in my district that I could show. And over time I gained the courage to begin to start posting and to start creating the content and the captions, and became comfortable enough to where it just took off, and I started doing it on a regular basis. And not only is it important to tell your story, but I can't tell you how many, like yourself, how many wonderful relationships that have been a result of my social media presence. And you're a perfect example of that. By me being present on social media and coming across your feed through one of my colleagues, then me starting to follow the work that you do and then say, hey, man, I could use some help as well. And then it turns into a professional relationship that benefits both, and so there's a number of those type of relationships that I've encountered, and friends that I have near and dear to my heart that I've met only that I started the relationship on social media.
Yeah. So when you talk about the value for a school of having social media presence and telling those stories, what would you define as some of the biggest value? Like, how
Well,
do you
I think
define that?
the biggest value, I think, in order for cultures of schools and any organizations to thrive, you have to have a level of trust. There has to be a relation, a feeling of a good relationship between the district and the community, but also a level of trust.
Mhm.
And I think the social media provides an opportunity for the school to create a vulnerable environment that opens up the ability for communities to trust what the educators are doing at that school site, or the district is doing for that thought. And it really benefits both the community and the district when parents feel comfortable about what's happening in the classrooms or at a school site, and when teachers and administrators are vulnerable enough to have fun, to make fun of themselves, to say, here's a project that we tried that bombed, and show a student or a teacher a complete mess, and then make fun of themselves. I mean, it just brings that human level to the work that we do, because we're not perfect.
Mhm.
And, if we're trying to present an image like we are, well, then we have some blind spots.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree from, a parent standpoint. I wasn't ever an educator. I didn't get to see all of the great things that are happening inside the schools, even though I've got 6 kids that have gone through public school. I remember what school was like when I went, but it's certainly changed, and there's some amazing opportunities, and there's a lot of negativity, especially with public school right now. And so for us to be able to help change that narrative, you do have to be a little vulnerable. There
Yeah.
are going to be things that come up that could be negative, but there's some good feedback that you can receive as well. So if somebody's listening right now, Jerry, and I think in the year 2022, we're certainly in a different spot than we were maybe in 2014 or 15 when you got started, where people were still a little gun shy. I think most schools have adopted this, but many may be like, oh my gosh, no, we're not going to empower all of our schools to tell the story because we can't properly train them, or what are they going to say? So what would you say to leaders that are more afraid of using social media? What would you tell them?
Well, I think the biggest fear that I have is that if we're not in this space, if I'm not in this space as a superintendent, and this is happening all around me, then eventually as a superintendent, I'm going to become irrelevant, because I'm sticking my head in the ground. I'm assuming that everything's okay. And I'm assuming everybody knows exactly what we're doing and how much success we're having. And that reality is that is not, what the story that the public is hearing. And if we're not, and I think you've said this a number of times, if we're not telling our story, somebody else is, and it may not be the version that we want out there. And so it is hard, and it is a leap of faith, and it's going to take some vulnerability and some risks. But I think I believe there's research that says 85% of adults' primary source of information is captured on social media platforms. So if we're not in that space telling our story, then we're missing 85% of our target market or our target audience. And somebody is out there, I guarantee you somebody's telling them a story, and it may not always be the best version of what is out there. So the other that's the school and the like the administrative kind of importance of it. The value for a person individually, whether you're a classroom teacher or a site administrator, is that your social media presence, if you have a personal professional account, now becomes your professional portfolio, like a like a hardcover resume. Well, if I get an applicant coming through, a principal or an assistant superintendent that I want to hire, the resumes start to look all the same, the level of experience, the experience they have. So I'm going to go on and look at their social media feeds to see what their real core values are. And that is going to be an additional layer on there. If they're not on social media, and if I can't find out a little bit more about them than what's on the piece of paper, well, then there's going to be some hesitancy on my part to really kind of seriously consider this individual for a permanent position. And the reason why is because I want somebody who is going to embrace this thought process, embrace the community, and really engage in that way, because I can reach thousands of people in a day by the use of social media, or I can maybe interact with 25 or 100 by going to the school sites.
Right. Yeah, and you're probably doing a little bit of both, but why
Yeah.
not hit those thousands of people every single day with the positive stories? So before we wrap up, Jerry, you've been able to share a lot from Santa Ana, from your previous school. Do you have one or two best stories that kind of stand out that you're really proud of? I know you shared a bunch related to some of the ways that you use social media for COVID. Are there other stories that you've been able to tell that stick out to you?
Yeah, the most recent one is so I talked about the graduate profile. Our graduate profile are characteristics of what our community wants our students to look like when they leave high school. Part of that is college and career readiness, which is also in alignment with our board policy of community engagement. Well, having the use of social media and the brand ambassadors, we held our annual college and career day. And we pushed it out through brand ambassadors, through our school sites. I mean, we hit every department, even our maintenance and operations department team pushed it out on their feeds. We had over 4,000 community and students participate. We were not expecting that many. We had a line, we held it at a zoo, Santa Ana Zoo, which is right down the street from us. And we held it outdoors because, there's still a lot of concern with, COVID and stuff like that going on. But we picked this location, beautiful, wide open space, but we did not expect over 4,000 community members to come. And it was the best example of this aligned leading with social influence push that we could have ever done. And I credit the success of the turnout to our principals, our site brand ambassadors, and all of our district leadership team, that our classified team, for making that push to get this message out to our community. And it was wonderful. And if you get a chance to go on and follow Santa Ana Unified School District on Instagram or Facebook, you can see some pictures from that event. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I'll share that. That happened the night before. I think I was in visiting your brand ambassador. So your team was really, really excited. And I'm so glad. It's so great to be able to get folks back together again. And for that to be such a big turnout from your graduate profile, all of this work that you've been doing, really since you've probably gotten there. What a remarkable thing to be able to share. So Jerry, now that everybody wants to be your best friend, because they all wish they had a leader like you that believes so much in social media, what's the best way to stay connected to you?
Oh, by all means, just follow me on the social media platforms. The easiest way to interact with me is DM me. I have that will get a response fairly quicker than sending an email or making a phone call. So
So are
yeah,
you on, is Twitter where you're the most, or LinkedIn, or what would you
all of them,
say?
all of
All of
them:
them.
Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
Okay. And is it your name?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll make sure to link that in the show notes, you guys, as well. And you can follow the great things Jerry's been doing. And I'm sure if you have some questions, you can always direct message him, like he said. I'm really impressed with what you've been able to do, Jerry. You've got a great communications team that's really excited because they have really been empowered from your leadership. And I think you're doing exactly what you say. It's not just now telling your story, but now you're leading with some social influence in order to make some changes and for people to really understand what's going on. And so definitely follow Jerry's lead, and we'll be watching what Santa Ana is sharing. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Andrea, and I have to give credit to you too, because it's because of what the work that you do, the influence that you have, and the skills and the knowledge that you share that allow districts like Santa Ana to thrive. So thank you for the work that you do and for inviting me to be a part of this podcast.
Yes. Well, I just follow great people like you, and then I learn, and then I share what I learn. So, but it's a blessing. So thank you so much. And you guys, thanks for tuning in this week. We will be back next week, like we are every week, with another great guest on this podcast. So until then, keep telling those stories. Bye, guys.